Hi and welcome back. In today's video, we're going to be talking about a personal story, which is my fight with a medical bill. So let's get started. So my youngest had her 18-month appointment, and at that 18-month appointment, she had a requirement to get some vaccines. However, my clinic was being bought over, and so I had the wellness visit in December, and then in January, when they opened up under the new clinic name, then I would be able to get the vaccines. So this is my story about that. Now, in case you aren't from the United States, if you have a health insurance plan that is considered an ACA plan or the Affordable Care Act, which you can get from the exchange, and a lot of employers have health insurance that meets the ACA guidelines, then your wellness visits as well as vaccines, which is a type of preventative care, is generally covered 100% when it's done in network. So we go there and I present the insurance card because one, they're a new clinic, and two, it's a new year. So with every year, there are sometimes changes with in-network providers versus not in-network providers. And so I gave them the insurance card to confirm and was told, yeah, you're still in network. And so we had the appointments and my kid got, I think, 3 or 4 shots. Then a week later, I get an email saying that the PCP, which is your primary care provider, was changed for my kids. And so I immediately called up the insurance company because it wasn't a change that I had specified. And they told me, oh yes, this is an automatically done thing because your provider is no longer in network. Yes, did you catch my face? I was like, wait a second. My kid has always seen this provider. Why are you telling me they're not in network? And they're like, well, they're not in network. So after the phone call, because I decided to change the PCP for a different PCP, then I go and I call the clinic and I'm like, hey, I was just told by insurance that you guys are not in network, but I already had my appointment and my kid already got shots. So what do I do next? And they told me that I would have to call the billing department. And so that's what I did. I went and I called the billing department, and the billing department said they didn't even see my kids' records in their system yet, and so they probably hadn't even processed it, and so to wait until I get the bill. So in April, I get a bill in the mail for $752, and if you look at my face, I was not happy about it, and I was like, well, I'm not paying this because I did my due diligence. I presented them the insurance card. They told me they were at network. Now they weren't in network, and so they're trying to charge me for services that would otherwise be 100% covered. So I call up the billing department, which is again a different person every time that you call, and I don't think that they are actually physically at the same location. And they tell me that they jotted down my notes. I told them who told me from their front desk that they were in network, the data services, and that my EOB stated that it was denied because they were not in network providers. And they said that they would contact their supervisor, contact me, and it would get escalated. Did I ever get a phone call in regards or ever speak to the supervisor? No. A month later, I get the bill, and once again, it is still $752, but now it says it is past due and that I'm delinquent. So I go and I call because I was like, hey, I already had this conversation. I even listed the person who I had previously spoken to, and that why am I still being considered past due when in fact I was disputing these charges and therefore it shouldn't continue on. It actually needs to be held and not placed towards collections, and the timer has to technically stop because we are now disputing it and trying to figure out what's going on. So they confirmed and they were like, oh, we're sorry, it's not going to go to collections, you are correct, and that once again it's going to go to a supervisor. Again, I reiterated, hey, my child had been there at that PCP for her entire life, so for the full 18 months prior, she had always seen that doctor, and that it was just a matter of them taking over, and so maybe it was just, they were going through the old system versus the new system, and that's why, because I hadn't been yet set up as a new patient in the new system yet, because that was the first time that my kid had been there under this new clinic, although the providers that we saw were the same people. So again, they said like, yep, we're gonna go push it to a supervisor and you'll get a call back. Did I get a call back? No. So now it's June, and again, no supervisor had contacted me, but the bill comes in and it's now only like $360 because they gave me a self-pay or uninsured discount, which again, I call them because my child is not uninsured, she is insured, but also the fact that I was not going to pay it because I was falsely told that my kiddo was going to receive services from an in-network provider. Services are covered with in-network providers, so why would I go to someone who wasn't to then have to foot the bill for it? So because I had escalated it a couple of times with their supervisors, again, No supervisor had contacted me. I was told that it would now have to go to corporate for corporate to review the case, and that once again, I should receive some confirmation in regards to what was going on within like 15 business days. Did I receive that? No. So about 2 weeks later, it's now July, and I get an automated phone call with a reference number and a different number to contact. So I go and I call this number, and guess what? I am now being directed to their delinquent account subsection, to which I was very unhappy with. So I go, I contact them, I call them, and they now tell me that, yep, I am now considered delinquent because I had not paid the original bill that was all the way back in April. So it had already been, April, May, June, July. So it had been already like 4 months, and that there was a possibility of being sent to collections, it being a negative score on my report, to which I was not happy because that was not the case. And also they technically applied a discount, which meant that it was now under the $500 requirements in order for it to be reported on the credit score. And so this just sparked a conversation between me and the phone rep, who essentially told me that corporate said it was denied. Again, no one had ever contacted me to tell me what corporate had decided, nor had corporate tried to contact me, and that essentially I was now responsible for the bill, and was I going to pay it right then and there, which I was like, no, I'm not going to pay it. I'm going to continue fighting it. Thank you. I have nothing else to say to you. So I call the insurance company, and at this point, it was very close to when I could no longer file for an appeal. I want you to pay attention to that because for some health insurance companies, you have 6 months from the date of service or 6 months from the EOB of that denial to then file for an appeal. And I ran really, really close to that 6 months trying to fight it with the actual medical provider. So now you're thinking, well, why didn't I just go straight to the insurance company to begin with? Well, because they weren't the ones who technically were at fault. It was the medical clinic provider for saying that they were a network when they weren't. So I originally, when I had contacted them the first time to find out what happened after the PCP switch, it was essentially, hey, they also told you wrong. You need to get them to adjust the bill. And they can adjust it through like 2 different ways. They can call it an uncredentialed adjustment, or they can call it an admin write-off. So that's what I was pushing for them to write it off. Now, I do want to say that the phone rep I got from that health insurance company for asking about how to file an appeal and to ensure that I was still going to be within that 6-month window was super great. Not only did they give me a reference number, so that way in my appeal letter, I could actually denote that to show that I did have a trail and that I was on the phone with the health insurance company a couple of times to try to resolve this issue. They also gave me a priority fax number, which is super helpful because sending it by mail just adds more time to it. And by being able to fax it in, it goes generally within 24 hours. And then, there's like 2 business days turnaround. I had sent it on Friday, so I had to wait until Monday to get a response, which I did. And thankfully it was just like hey, we received it, which is the confirmation that you need to confirm that you are still within your 6-month window. So when you file an appeal, you generally have to file an appeal with a letter. Sometimes there's a form, and then you still have to write a letter anyways. In my case, I just wrote a letter, and in the letter I basically just pointed out the timeline of the events, the actions that I took, as well as attached the original EOB from her 18-month appointment showing the same provider, and that it was approved at the beginning of January, and then the second EOB just stating that there were shots and that the shots would otherwise be covered under the ACA because it's preventative care. I also noted that again it was the same provider, and that it was, although the service date was in the new year, that I was showing that hey, it was supposed to be actually in this appointment, but it wasn't, and they were covered back then. So please undo your decision to deny it. Give me this one-time exemption because I followed through and did everything I needed to do. I also mentioned that I did talk to them. I went through and I listed all the different dates that I contacted the billing department of the clinic to show that I was trying to fight it and get them to do the adjustment instead of going through insurance. And so in like the end of July, I received a letter, and then I received an email and some more letters in the mail stating that they overturned the decision to deny it, but that in the future to continue using in-network providers. So I won, and they are technically going to be paying the clinic, and so my bill should be back to 0. Now, another thing that I wanted to note is I also did leave a negative review on the clinic's page because I thought it was not professional how their administration handled this whole chain of events, even though I love the medical providers themselves. And if it weren't for all of this in-network, out-of-network junk that you have to deal with American healthcare, I would still be using them. But unfortunately, it's just not going to pan out. And I have new providers, and hopefully I don't have to deal with this billing mess again. So I just wanted to leave some quick advice in case you find yourself in a similar situation. First point is that if you have a provider who then ends up moving to a different location, or if the location itself gets bought out, you want to make sure that the new location is in network, because they can all of a sudden be no longer contracted with your particular health insurance company. 2, if you are starting services in a new year, you should always present your insurance card regardless, but for every new year change, that generally means that there are some changes within that particular plan's administration. And so that's why I was more vigilant to fighting this, because it was a new year and I was like, hey, my insurance number didn't change, but technically my plan name changed. So just run it and make sure that it's still good. My biggest tip is to always be friendly on the phone, and if you are there in person, be friendly in person. It's okay if you are giving body language that's more negative, but always try to stay positive, because you're going to need to be on their good side essentially. Usually fighting medical bills is not a one-time call fix. It usually is a process, and so you want to make sure that you are documenting everything that goes. So what I did was I documented the date that I called, the time that it took for the call, who I spoke to, and then just some quick summary notes of what was discussed on the call. When you take these notes, if they tell you they're going to call you back, make sure you put that in your notes that they said they were going to, because that's just further ammunition that they are not sticking up or following their own standard procedures, because that's what they're stating that they're going to do. If you have to file an appeal, I generally recommend going and calling your insurance company first to confirm that you have the correct claim number. If there is a fax number, accept the fax number. Some insurance companies actually have this where you can email it through an online portal, which is also great, but try to avoid the method of mailing it. And if you are going to have to mail it, make sure you get some type of confirm of receipts, either a signature or just a, hey, it was dropped off, because you need to confirm that it was delivered or that somebody accepted it, so they can't go, well, you know, we're just a corporation that gets thousands of appeal letters and yours just slipped through the cracks. Again, these things are timed generally. In my case, for my insurance company, I had 6 months from date of service. You want to make sure that you keep the physical bills, or if you get it online through like a billing portal, you want to make sure you take screenshots of it, so that way you can show the chain of events as well. Because again, it's all about establishing a timeline and showing what actions you took to try to resolve this on your own before going into an insurance company to have it resolved for you. The last thing is that when you write the appeal letter, you want to make sure that you're not emotional in your appeal letter. You want to just state the facts, the timelines, and then make a brief statement about why you think this appeal should be granted. So yeah, let me know in the comments below if you've ever had to deal with something like this. Let me know if you would like a kind of like a template for the appeal letter that I wrote. Obviously my information won't be in it, but I'll give you a good guideline of how to fill it out and structure it. If you have any questions, or if you want me to make videos about health insurance stuff here in the United States, please let me know in the comments below. Although it's not really a personal finance topic, I still think it's a personal finance topic, because a lot of times people get surprised by medical bills, or there are times that medical bills can cause delinquencies and cause things to go on your credits, and sometimes they can be outrageous and sometimes they're not. And so if I could be a resource to you, again, just let me know and I'm more than happy to help. Also, just say hi. I love engagement, and it's really nice knowing that there's somebody else out there watching this video that isn't probably like my mom or my husband. If you found this video at all helpful, give this video a like, share it with a friend who might be dealing with some medical billing pain in the butt. And as always, here to help, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.